Hello, dungeon people. I'm Jackson, and you remind me of the babe. I have a whole lot of horror movies in front of me, what appears to be a tier list. Now, we are going to be ranking these in tier lists not by how good of horror movies they are, because you've seen a bunch of those before. We're going to be grading these based on how good of a D&D campaign, or rather a one-shot, could be. In fact, since all of these are solo films, in fact, I'm not going to pay too much attention to sequels and franchises. I'm going to be picturing each one of these as a D&D one-shot that's good for experienced players, or perhaps bringing on new people who like horror stuff or maybe don't like horror stuff watching it, but they could play through it and have a little more agency, right, as D&D characters. So, the tiers that I have here are a little bit different. We don't want just S tier, right? We have an S tier, which is going to be play it right now. We have A, which is like, yeah, this is a good game. It absolutely works. I can foresee there's a lot of these on here that already are D&D campaigns or one-shots, whether you know it or not. So I think that we'll wind up with a lot in A. B is it's good, but it needs some work. There's a difference between something that's a good story or a good villain and something that is able to have players kind of play through it and again have that agency. They're able to act on these monsters and terrible things happening and maybe even win at the end. Or if they all die, at least they have fun along the way. C is there's something there that we can work with. It's not nothing, but it's going to need a lot of work. D is, I'm just going to say, bad game. And then I have a reserved F tier for bad game, bad movie. Just to be clear that a lot of these movies I might enjoy, but, not the best game, but there are some that are just bad. I have an M tier for great movie, bad game, before I get yelled at too much for putting classics down in my D tier. That is my defense. And then finally, I have a G tier, which is going to be good background, because there's a few of these that I think don't work at all as a group story. But if you say, oh, my character is actually a lot like this movie, then that works really well. I also have up top here a no comment tier. A few of these I just haven't seen. Others I have seen, and I have no idea what to think about it. Stephen King's It, we have the movie down here that I'm going to rank. I don't really want to talk about the TV show, too. So, shall we begin? 10 Cloverfield Lane. By the way, this is going to be in alphabetical order, so not by year, by quality or anything. 10 Cloverfield Lane. We have our characters scared of something. They go to a safe house. It winds up being more threatening possibly than the outside world. I think there's a good setup here. I think this works as kind of a one-shot precursor to the campaign later. But there's something to work with here. As it stands, John Goodman with a barrel of acid is not that much of a D&D villain, even for level 1 characters. So I'm gonna say, but you're in a dungeon the whole time. It's good, it needs work. Reanimator. I have to see Reanimator. I'm so sorry. I'm gonna have to put this in my no comment here. I mean, there's necromancy, so I imagine it's pretty good. 28, is this days or weeks? That's days. 28 days later. Really solid zombie movie. I think kind of gets credit for kicking off the zombies as a virus. And of course, you've seen zombies in D&D before, right? I think that the flow of the story here actually works very well. We start with disparate characters. They band together as a team. Stuff happens. Eventually, they run into a military compound that could be, the noble's castle or whatever. I think there's a lot to work with here. Is it just straight up good? It is very focused on one character. But you know what? There is a party there, and there's a good amount of action too. I'm gonna say A tier for 28 days. Sweeney Todd, Demon Barber. Interesting. There's not much of a party at play. Sweeney Todd seems like more of a villain, more of your NPC that your dungeon master is being, rather than your characters. Other characters can be evil and messed up. We know that. That's a rough one. The French barber is your boss fight. Wow. All the singing and everything that happens. I'm trying to remember the actual like story points. I don't know if this one works as a game. It's almost like a good background. Except for, stuff that happens at the end. It's almost a better like fable, a better story than it is for something to actually be played through. I'm going to say great movie, bad game. Akira. I like this list because it had something outside of the usual like Friday the 13th, Halloween kind of movies. Akira, even though it's very much sci-fi, I think the imagery that you get towards the end of a character who is being overtaken by a combination of technology and eldritch horror, that's something that you can really play up. That's a really good boss fight. Tetsuo has his little party that ride on motorbikes. I mean, horses, right? Or just go bikes. Like Eberron exists, I think there's something to work with here. It's almost like too grand and metaphysical. They do go to a dungeon full of like kids who have been magically experimented on, so that's something. I'm thinking about it too much, so I think it needs work, but I think it's very good, and I'm going to put it ahead of 10 Cloverfield. 30 Days of Night. I really want to see this one, but I know about the concept of it, and I've seen clips of it. I think this idea works very well. A lot of D&D campaigns will give you the advice to like make it an event, make this a milestone. There's a special festival going on, and I think just the setup of, okay, we're up this far from the equator, so we are going to have these long periods of night, and what if that means spooky things come out? There's a whole lot of D&D monsters you can use that are creatures of the night. I think it's a very good setup. Can't comment too much on the plot and everything that happens here, other than there's vampires and there's 30 days of night and you got to survive and stuff. I think that's a pretty good setup. It's almost not a one-shot. We'll put it on, I guess to be fair, I'm going to put this on no comment, even though I'm commenting on it. I think it's a good setup, but I do want to see that one. That's like on the top of that list. The ABCs of Death is something that I have seen. Unfortunately, the ABCs of Death is interesting because it's an anthology. There's 26 different scenarios that play out, and none of them are really something that you could play through, I don't think. I think this is going to be bad game, bad movie, because even though I like the idea of horror anthologies, and they have a sense of being hit and miss, there's like maybe 3 or 4 hits on this movie, and most of it's just kind of bad and weird and not in a good way. American Psycho. Ooh. I'm detecting this going here just because it's all about this one character who might actually be multiple people, who has some clear, psycho, mental stuff going on. It's all a commentary about America and the horror that we live through in the business world. Like, don't quote me on that. I'm sure there's better video essays on there about what American Psycho means. It might actually work as a good background. Ooh. That one's rough because, like, we're seeing everything from the murderer's perspective. We can try to escape, but he's not that great of a villain on his own to, like, fight a psycho businessman. I mean, that's good there. I'm gonna put that there's something there. There's something you can work with. But then Sweeney Todd might go there too. I think it's a great movie. It's a bad game, too hard to play out. Maybe incorporate that villain character of like a guild merchant, a guild master who has just completely lost it and has to make the best business scroll, and that's the party's quest. Candyman. Oh, really good movie. Just saw this a year ago. This is the classic Candyman from the 90s. Great villain. Lots of illusion magic going on. We have a haunted location. We have interacting with the populace and trying to be respectful about them. I'm kind of drawn to stories on here where we have like a journalist or a documentarian who's going into an area. That's a good setup for your party to say, hey, here are the facts that we know. Here's the things we don't know that you need to answer. And also, if you want to like fight the ghosts, that's fine too. So I think this is a good setup. I think Candyman is a good villain. It is all kind of focused around one character, and there are definitely some things that's going on in her mind, and is she actually alive or dead or whatever. It's good. It needs a lot of work to take the idea, but I think the strength of like the Candyman as a villain, that mannerism, the outfit, the mystique and allure that's built up around him is so good. It needs a lot of work, but I'm gonna put it at top of B. This is classic Cloverfield. I'm remembering all the Cloverfield things, right? Cloverfield on its own. I mean, we do have a team of friends, they're not adventurers. We're running around with a camera after something insane happens. You can ditch the camera and just make this a survive the city. There's a lot of different monsters. Ranging, I mean, we kind of go up the CR scale, don't we? The characters have to interact with military people and other survivors. But I think the best thing that I love about Cloverfield as a movie and as potentially a D&D one shot is that it's all happening right now. You gotta do stuff. There's no big breaks. Maybe a short rest or two. But yeah, it is all like here's the first 24 hours of something awful happening with a big damn kaiju monster. So I actually, again, this is weird, like putting Cloverfield above Candyman. That would usually never happen, but I think for a D&D game, there's a lot to work with in Cloverfield. It's not fantastic. There's nothing quite as inspiring there, whereas like Candyman, amazing villain who you want to use, the story and how you get there, a little rougher. The Crow, very edgy 90s vibes. It's all based around one dude. He's a superhero who's out for revenge. He's a reborn, possibly even a revenant. So this could work as like a villain background. I do think this is a good background. As a story, even if I were to replace the one character of the Crow with like 4 or 5 randos who met in a tavern, running through that, it's mostly just I fight crime. It's an extremely good background for like a vengeance paladin or a revenant, but as a story to play through with your friends, I don't think so as much. We have classic Dracula. I mean, this one, we have Curse of Strahd, right? We have Curse of Strahd. It's so hard to separate Dracula from Strahd. In a very meaningful way. We have the whole, not only the haunted castle, but the haunted surrounding land that has been infected. Like, I think this is an easy play it now because Curse of Strahd exists. And even if you strip away the D&D side of it and just leave, take the classic D&D vampire stat block and work around with the more classical tale, I think Dracula works extremely well, and it's very accessible to people who maybe they haven't played D&D, maybe they even haven't seen horror movies, but like they know who Dracula is. I think that's S tier. Evil Dead 2. I don't think that Evil Dead is on this list, which is interesting. I looked at a few horror tier lists. There's of course a ton out there, and I like this one. But it is lacking Evil Dead. I guess the first Evil Dead is just kind of like your party's in a cabin and weird stuff happens when somebody reads the artifact in Celestial or Infernal, excuse me. So Evil Dead 2. It does wind up being very focused around Ash. I like everything that happens in Evil Dead 2. Like there's some very clear, this encounter happens, here's the solution. This encounter happens, there's the solution. I think that's very good for a one-shot. Too often I see one-shots where it's like one room, one dungeon. You can have a lot of different things and just pick up your pace. And also just the fun factor of what Sam Raimi brings to these movies. I think Evil Dead 2 is a great example. It might need some work. Well, if everybody has to survive and make sacrifices like Ash, I think that the party can live through this, right? Um, yeah, screw it. S tier, Evil Dead 2. Frankenstein. I did actually watch the original like black and white Frankenstein in a political science fiction course in college. If you believe it. And while there's a lot of classic elements there, we have a flesh golem in D&D, the 5th edition monster manual, like, and the mad scientist, evil artificer. There's a lot to work with there. The actual story of Frankenstein, it's very about the metaphor and the politics of it. If you were to lay out the story of events, it's like, yeah, they make a dead guy. The town gets mad about the dead guy, and stuff happens. Like, there's not a lot there to build a ton of story on. I think it's a good framework for, like, take this and add your own twist to it. What if you all are playing as Frankenstein's monster and the Bride of Frankenstein and all this jazz? Like, you're all the monsters, and now the townspeople are mobbing against you, and you have to survive. Do you want to prove you're a monster and kill the townsfolk? I'm going off on a tangent, which is to say that, like, this... I think this is going to be C, because there's something there, for sure. Absolutely. But this takes a lot of work, more than the stuff that I have in B tier right now. Frozen. Not the Let It Go one, but you are stuck on a cable car at a ski resort, and, like, it's cold, and at one point there's some wolves, I guess. Yeah, this is not a good horror movie, and it's also not a good campaign to be like, hey guys, you're stuck suddenly, what do you do? I don't know, do I jump down? Do I have hit points for that? No, I'm first level. I guess I just stay here. Alright, roll Constitution save for cold exhaustion. That gets old from the first roll. I Am Legend. We have another zombie. Well, I guess they're like vampire zombie creatures. I like how we see lots of different versions of D&D monsters, and it's kind of a reminder to you as a DM that just because the monster manual says, here's what a zombie is, you can, even without changing and homebrewing any of the stats, you can put a twist on it. I Am Legend, it is a very solo survival story. You get some friends towards the end. There's a dog. You can let one of your players just straight up play as a dog with levels in Fighter. That's cool. I mean, the survival element of being in a post-apocalyptic landscape, running through the cities, is a lot like dungeon crawling. It's almost a bit too slow towards the end. Or too slow until the end, I mean, when everything picks up, because we gotta have a third act action set piece. I think this goes up here with this one. I think... I'll put it in B. I'll put it in low B. I'll see if that changes. Interview with a Vampire. Good moods, good attitudes, good character inspiration. As far as the stuff that happens, I mean, it's a tale that expands over a series of years. There's a lot of characters and a lot of things that happen, but it's all focused around one guy. Maybe there's some like urban fantasy world building that you can borrow. But I can't say I've ever seen like a really solidly well done urban fantasy D&D game where it's set in the modern world, but like also there's vampires. That doesn't mean it can't happen. I'm gonna say this is good background. Good background. Jennifer's Body. This is actually a fun one. Cult stuff goes wrong. One of the party members might be kind of a demon. The rest of you have to stop it through high school hijinks. I actually think there's something there to work with. You gotta stretch. It's a lot. Yeah, see, there's something there. Antichrist. Chaos reigns. This is a trip and a half to watch with some friends if you're not too squeamish. It's just kind of bad things happening to Willem Dafoe, or really this whole family. I hesitate to put it in a good background because it's not really a good background. It's not something that you want to come out of for your character. Human warlock Willem Dafoe. Um, Great movie, bad game. Mama. This is actually one of my like favorite horror movies to watch and to show to people. It does have some like spooky jump scares in it, but I really like the acting. I like the design of the monster. She's a bit rough because she doesn't really follow that many rules. Like writing her out as a D&D monster would be tough. But I think you could really work with the dynamic of saying, hey, everybody in the party, here's your character sheets. You're the dad, you're the mom, except they're not mom and dad. They've like adopted them. Here's your two feral kids, goblins, and you gotta work hard to protect the kids from Mama, who's coming out to get them, while you're trying to figure out what the supernatural mystery of Mama is. I am biased. This is one of my faves that not a lot of people I ever hear talk about, but I think there's really something there to work with. It's good as a one shot that you have like one villain who has the ability to show up, give you a spook, do some psychic damage, and then leave safely until the final confrontation, where you can choose to battle her, or if you did all the investigations and the rituals right, you can put her at peace. I think this is good. I'm gonna put it in A tier. Nosferatu. Nosferatu is actually a separate vampire stat block in Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. So as far as the story that happens, I mean, it's kind of the same as Dracula. Tough one to grade. I did want to have it on here. I mean, he's already a monster. I'm going to put no comment because he's a good monster, but like the movie itself, I don't know what you would play through. Clearly, I missed a few of these in my no comment section. There's a lot of movies here. There's over 100 that I'm still going to wind up grading. Did they have Scream and Scream 2 on here? Just Scream 2. So the whole vibe of like I'm taking Scream 2 here as like all the Scream movies combined, because they're all kind of, oh, what if serial killers were real? Lol, we're gonna laugh about it and poke fun at it and break the fourth wall. Okay, it's not really fourth wall breaking, it's something different, but I think the tone that this has is something that would be really nice to replicate in a D&D one-shot, to just be like, oh, hey, metagame it up. Metagame it up. Your characters realize that they're in a serial killer tale, and you know that you're playing the characters, so like, what would you do? I think there's something to work with there. As far as the actual story, it's like, oh, there's a serial killer and stuff happens. There's something there. I'm actually going to put this like towards the top just because while I don't, Scream movies are not some of my favorite horror movies, I do think that the tone for your D&D game is already heading towards that, so why not embrace it and milk it? Resident Evil, we're talking about the movie, the first movie, and not the games. Your military team goes into a dungeon. There's some kind of cult activity. There's an undeath virus thing that really takes the form of more aberrations. There's some kind of ghost girl. The nobles, military folk get decimated, and you have to pick up their weapons and gear and get going. You know what? Because it's so dungeonful, I think there's actually a lot going on here to work with. Do I think it's an S tier? There's so many cool monsters to fight that are right there for you, and just the pacing of, hey, you're in this, wake up, do you know anything? You don't? Alright, we're gonna go in this dungeon and get killed by traps. Okay, stuff is happening, damn it, I wouldn't expect this, but I think this is an S tier. I think it's going to stay towards the lower end. Silent Hill, once again, we're talking about the movie, not the game. There's a lot of weird stuff in this one. I think that the movie, while it's never going to capture the same atmosphere that playing the game will. I think there's a lot to be said about the atmosphere in the movie. It does a serviceable job. Like, it's not bad. We have kind of a level 0 protagonist who's running around. We're trying to save a kid. There's a cop paladin there too, I guess, and maybe they won't get horribly killed in this. You got Pyramid Head. That's a crazy good villain. You've got all kinds of other little monsters going on. And also, the vibes of the world and the lore that you uncover is actually very magical. And that is something that I want for a lot of D&D games, is not just say, hey, we're playing through a totally mundane world. Like, there is some magic here that we can be. I think it needs work. There's almost so much like random kind of stuff happening, but then again, that works. There's your random encounters. I think this would be a fun one to just build a random encounter table with, maybe even with the people that you're about to play with, but you don't know what's going to come next around the next corner. I think Silent Hill is really good. I think there's something to work with. I think it's a better environment than these. I'm going to put it at the top of A. Do I think it's... I don't quite think it's S, just because like we don't really have like a firm like squad of here. Well, I said the same thing about Evil Dead 2. Evil Dead 2 has better. Nah, I'm keeping it at the top of A. We're sticking with it. Sleepy Hollow. I like this movie a lot. I think it's kind of has a nice blend of trying to be very serious but winds up being kind of silly that, a lot of horror dungeon masters can attest to. There's a mystery to solve. There's a big bad monster. We don't ever have any smaller monsters unless you count like the town douchebags who dress up as the Headless Horseman. But you have a lot of encounters. You're trying to save the town. Stuff escalates. This one's good. This is a nice little setup. There's some magic there. There's the hell dimension. There's witches. Wow, damn. No, this one's really good. Bottom of S. The Mist, another fave of mine. We, of course, have some eldritch horrors coming out of a magical environmental hazard. I'm a big fan of those. The aspect that makes The Mist a really great horror movie is also what I think would make it a great D&D one-shot, because the horror is not only from The Mist and the eldritch horrors out there and where they came from, but the people of the town who are trapped together and go through different degrees of fear and hysteria and demagoguery, and what factions can you create as a DM within the, I guess it wouldn't be a supermarket, but within the castle or wherever they wind up. I think there's so much you can play around with that really starts to cover all three of your pillars of Dungeons and Dragons. Not just combat, but we've got exploration. We got to go out and find people, find drugs, whatever, and roleplay. Holy heck, with the factions and what do we do here? I think The Mist is very, very good. I think it works better than Evil Dead 2, actually. We're going to put it in S tier. The Purge, arguably not a horror film, but so are some of these on this list. It's fine. I think a classic home invasion setup, while it's not the most original like movie to watch, works very, very well for a one-shot, especially. Like, everyone knows their jobs. I think that kind of flips the script on the players and DM, where it's like, hey, you guys have the dungeon. My monsters are going to be infiltrating. You have the traps. You have the weapons. You know what's up. You just have to live through these waves coming in. There's no real magical elements. I mean, you can substitute some of the technology of the secured household with, magical wards. I think The Purge is very good. I don't think it's something like incredible. We're gonna throw it kind of. Yeah, when I start to see those other ones, we'll put it right here. I think Cloverfield has a better like party exploration setup, but I think that using The Purge can be a very good game. Signs. This one's interesting. I like Signs a lot. It is a very slow movie. Information is drip fed to you in such a way that really ramps up the suspense, which is much harder to do when you're trying to have a one shot, where it's like, all right, let's get going. Now, could you cut to basically act three or halfway through this movie? When it's like, oh, the signs are real, the aliens are coming, and play through that. Maybe you do have the disadvantage of there's only one villain, there's no real environmental factors. Shoot. Do I want to put this? I don't think it would be a bad game, because there's something there to work with. I'm going to put it in needs work, because I like signs. I think it can really work out. But, oh gosh, there's stuff coming, Oh, now it's here. Oh, it's gone now. Is kind of the plot structure. Maybe you can have more fun at your table. Now that I say that, I think it belongs down here. The Witch. Another super slow horror movie where you would just drip fed the suspense at just the right moments. Absolutely masterful piece of horror cinema. Is it a good D&D game? Well, we have witches. We have a demon goat. There's crazy stuff happening in the woods. There's some stuff going on with religion and gods, which is, true to the D&D genre. So there's something there to work with. Mostly everything happens towards the end, though. Kind of what's going on with signs. Funny that these two were together. But almost to a greater extreme. Actually, I think this would make a crazy good background. Like, really, really good background. I think it makes such a better background for your wizard, your warlock, your sorcerer, than it does trying to turn this into an adventure, that I'm going to leave it in good background. Like, I'll put it at the top of good background. Van Helsing. Oh, I laugh because it's kind of a cheesy action movie more than it is like a horror experience. It's not scary. It has vampires and werewolves, but it's not scary. But, you have this overpowered Hugh Jackman Van Helsing, who's not an old man. He goes and he gets geared up. He's got all the, very magical or religious equipment to, be a paladin ranger cross-class against whatever he comes across. There's definitely a party here. There's a carriage chase. The scene where he's fighting the flying around brides of Dracula in the town while trying to keep the dumb town people safe is actually a pretty cool set piece. And then at the end, it just goes absolutely bonkers. Damn it. It's not a fun movie, or it's a fun movie. It's not a good movie by any stretch, but I think it's really fun for D&D, you guys. Oh, do I want to put it ahead of The Mist? Yeah, no, because it's around here. It's in the same spot. It's in S tier. I think it's really good. This kind of makes me want to give Van Helsing another watch, which I think says a lot for the potential of that idea. The Wicker Man. This has the picture of the Nick Cage version, but I actually think that capturing that tone of just D&D PCs being ridiculous and trying to solve a mystery, but constantly being violent at every turn. I want to roll a disguise check. You're not proficient with a disguise check, but there's a bear suit right there. I got a nat 20. Let me do it. Okay, fine, I guess. Like, yeah, this is a weird case where like it already is a fun D&D game. I don't know if I would model one on it. I'm gonna put it in A, because it is a weird cult mystery, and that's tried and true in D&D, and I think you could have a lot of fun with it. Attack your party with bees! World War Z. This is This is a funky one. I said something about keeping things snappy and jumping from encounter to encounter to encounter. This one hops across the whole world, and you're always fighting hordes of zombies. There's a ton of NPCs that you're picking up, which could be your other like party members. There's almost too much going on in World War Z to make a one shot out of. I guess you are exploring, you're using your skills, you're using your role play to try to get people on your side. There's stuff to work with here. I think it's a lot. Like, actually, these two right next to each other, so, I Am Legend, it's all very focused. Even if you turn Will Smith's character into a party and let someone play as the dog, please do that. It's all very focused around kind of one city. Here's his home. Here's some people he meets. And World War Z, you're just jumping around everywhere. And there's so much stuff happening, and there's so much fighting. And we know how long D&D combat usually takes. How many zombie encounters can you have where the zombies don't necessarily like change that much? It's good. It needs work. Yeah, it needs a lot of work. Zombieland, on the other hand, we don't really see lots of different zombies, but we see a lot of rich exploration with all the different places we go to. It's also just a wonderful, wonderful piece of the party and what the party should look like. Because even though it's been so long, I think the main character's name is Cleveland or something. They all had city names. Even though that guy is kind of the main character, the other people around him are cooler, but he has his things that he can do. His thing is, I have rules. He's like a level 1 paladin. He's like a little halfling paladin. This is so fun because I'm thinking of all the characters and how I would build them now. Zombieland is a ton of fun. It's the kind of tone that you want to create for your D&D game. You're traveling around, but not quite as much as World War Z. Also, World War Z is in this weird spot where we're not post-apocalyptic, but we're not right at the start. It's all the stuff in the middle of like the height of chaos, which can be cool to play through in D&D. Really hard to run as a DM. Zombieland hits a happy medium where there's enough stuff still around. There's still survivors, and bonus as a DM, you get to be Bill Murray as an NPC. This is great. I think it's good. I think Zombieland is a good game. I don't think it's quite up here as like a play it now, because it's a better like example of good stuff to do in your D&D game that it is like, hey, play out this adventure as its own D&D. Lost Boys. Despite my 80s nostalgia that I'm rocking right now, I don't like this movie. I don't like this movie. I think it's really like cheesy beyond being very enjoyable to me. But there's something there to work with. So we'll start with it here. You do have a party that has to defeat the incredibly easy to defeat vampires. Then again, if you've ever played Curse of Strahd and been like, well, I know where the Sunblade is and I have it now, let's go fight them, I guess. Vampires can be easy with their weaknesses. It's a really good example of for a DM of like creating like a charismatic villain squad that then gets killed. Kind of a character getting pulled to the vampire, towards the dark side, toward the monstrous side. That's almost a good backstory for your undead warlock or your reborn or something. This is a really tough one, because in the end, like the kids get together with their brother or whatever, and they go fight. You've got this town that they kind of not rule over, but they wander around, they do whatever they want. Gosh, that's a rough one. I think there's stuff to take from this. Turning it into an adventure, there's not much there. Like, there's a whole lot of introspection for one character, and like, do I want to be this? Do I want to be gay with all the boys who are super happy with themselves and gonna run around the town all together? I think it's a super good background. Super good background. Coraline. Very, very fun. Lots of crazy good NPCs. Very colorful, like... I want to say world building, but it's very focused world building. Not only do you have this new city that she's moved to, but you have the other plane, right? You could actually have a lot of fun with this one by handing each of your PCs 2 character sheets and saying, or have them create one or both of them at home, where like, this is you when you're in this world, this is you when you're in the other world. There's a lot going on in Coraline. There's a cool villain. There's lots of little sub-villains. There's lots of little magic you can do with like the buttons and sewing, and ends up being horrible. Oh man, there's so much magic. There's so much magic. It does need work, like the actual plot structure of it. It's not like, here's our Act 1 encounter, here's our Act 2 encounter, here's our Act 3 encounter. It's more like it's building, crazy stuff is happening. I can see this one being very cool, like for kids, or for an introduction into D&D. It would just like, look at all the crazy, wacky stuff you can do. Let's just have an encounter where you're just talking to your crazy neighbors upstairs and learning about their lore. There again, kind of like 10 Cloverfield Lane, this is almost a very good like precursor to a campaign. It does work for a good background. Again, like Coraline I keep coming up with the Warlock. Wow. I think it's good. I think it's a really good world to use, even if you don't like play through the story. Maybe there's some other story stuff you can build in on, rather than just like, I'm a little girl in a Neil Gaiman book, and look at all the crazy whimsy happening around me. Oh wait, the whimsy wants to kill me. Alien, S tier, top of S. Top of S. It's an incredibly good monster, incredibly good suspense building, incredibly good. The ship is a dungeon. The ship is a haunted house. Like, it's so good. All the little encounters. It would add an extra dimension to the gameplay to have a party, because mostly what gets people in Alien and a lot of horror movies is that they run off on their own, and that's when they get got. So when you have a group who is playing smart, can they do the stuff that they need to do to get out? There's some stuff that you can do with that. You can add some ticking clocks. You can say you got to run to this part of the ship to do this part, and this part of the ship to do the other thing, and you have to split the party. Alien's really, really good. It's an insanely good. I'm surprised we don't have like a xenomorph adjacent monster in the books. If that exists, and I'm talking published material, because I have no doubt it's been homebrewed with some really, really good homebrew. If that exists in the books, please let me know. I need to take a quick break on my throat. I'm drinking orange soda out of a goblet, just like David Bowie. Let's see. A Quiet Place. Neat movie. We definitely have a party. They're trying to survive the elements. They're trying to survive one type of monster. And I've noticed a theme here. There's a lot of these where I like the ones where you have a few different kinds of monsters you can fight. I like that variety. But there's also something to be said for Alien that I just put at the top of S tier, where you have one thing that is just very, very good and very, very well made and very well will kill you. And Quiet Place has that in their monsters. Now, the gimmick of Quiet Place is that the monsters hear anything, right? It would be difficult to play out in a game, and I actually think it would be very annoying. I could see this going very, very bad, where you have a DM who's like, "Oh, you talked, you didn't whisper, do your hand signs, or tell me you were whispering, so the monsters are on you and you're dead now, haha." Also, the monsters beyond their gimmick, there's not too much there to work with. Like they're very good at what they do, but what they do is, oh, I heard you and I kill you. It almost feels like you have more of a fighting chance against the xenomorph, as weird as that is to say. I'm hesitating too much on this, so I think I'm going to say great movie, bad game. What do we have here? Nightmare on Elm Street. We've got Planar Travel. We have an incredibly charismatic villain that's going to be fun to portray. Lots of mysteries about like how we can escape. You would have to do kind of a shared dream space rather than like, oh, I'm in your dream and you're dead, and oh, I'm in your dream and you're dead. There's a lot to work with there. It does provide some interesting difficulties that I think are good challenges, but I'm going to recognize that they're challenges. This belongs up here with these guys. Again, like, painful for me to put Nightmare on Elm Street behind Cloverfield and Silent Hill. So again, I'm just grading these movies off of what a good D&D campaign it would be. Autopsy of Jane Doe. I love this movie, and I've never really heard people talk about it other than online lists. So I definitely recommend Autopsy of Jane Doe. And it has such a generic name that you would be like, oh, I'm sure this is extremely low budget, but it's really well done. Brian Cox is in it. Like, I think the setup of, okay, you are all morticians, you're undertakers, you know, you can be part of the clergy, you're all clerics or whatever. I think that's a very good setup, and again, you're in the dungeon, you know what the dungeon is, because it's your little mortuary, but weird stuff starts happening, there's illusion magic, there's traps, there's kind of one big villain, but that one villain exerts a whole lot of presence. It does kind of run the syndrome of, like, there's a bunch of weird stuff happening, but do I actually have any agency over it? Can I do anything? Not really. I still think it's fun, even if this one is probably going to wind up being okay, did we all have fun? Cool, you're all dead. Love the movie. I don't want to say it's a bad game, because I think there's something there, but it's definitely there's something there. Black Swan, it's all in one character's head. Yeah, it's all completely in one character's head. I don't even know if I could give it a good background. It's a cool story. It's a good movie, certainly, but I think it's a bad game. Cabin in the Woods, kind of like Scream. You can have fun here with that aspect of, like, yes, metagame. I am telling you to metagame. I'm giving you a wisdom saving throw because of the pheromones that are coming through the air right now. I mean, there's a lot of tech and magic in that. There's a ton that you can get into with, like, the third act. When you did I say at the top of this video that I was gonna be doing soft spoilers for all these movies? Soft spoilers for all these horror movies. It's really good. It's really, really good, actually. And it does focus around a party more so than something like Evil Dead 2, where, like, you start with a party, but it's gonna be ash at the end. So I'll put it there. A Clockwork Orange. Oh boy. Great movie. Messed up movie. Great for, film studies. Yeah, I mean, your droogs are a party, but there's some content there. Bit of the old ultra violence and rape that I don't want to play out at a D&D game. Once you actually get into, like, okay, you do all this bad stuff, now you're free, but people are trying to, the mind flayers are trying to take away your free will so you can never do an evil act again. Is it a good background? I'm not going to put it on good background, because if somebody came to my table and said, hello, my level 1 rogue is actually based on Alex Delage, I would be like, okay, cool, get far away, please. Great movie, bad game. The Conjuring 2. I actually had to remind myself, like, there's a few Conjuring-verse movies that I've seen that have muddled together, where they're all, like, good, but I had to remind myself, like, oh, yeah, Wikipedia, that's what happened in that one. And The Conjuring 2, once I actually pulled up, like, that imagery and the stuff that's happening, again, I think it's a very good setup for you to say, okay, We're in a one-shot. We're skipping the whole randos meet in a tavern thing. You four are paranormal investigators. You're the cleric, you're the paladin, you're the rogue. Like, you all have your things that you do. Let's go to this house and see all the weird stuff going on. And there's weird stuff going on. And there's multiple entities and ghosts. And there's some stuff in here. Possession is always a nice little moral quandary to throw into a combat encounter. To say, you know, are you going to take the easy way out and lop off this person's head? Are you going to make all these exorcism checks? Do you have the right spells as a cleric to work this out? Conjuring 2 has a whole lot of potential. It does start to run into the, like, whoa, weird stuff's happening. What do you do? So I think it's like a very high A tier. Ooh, it's not quite as good as any of these. Yeah, it's the bottom A tier. You can do good stuff with this. I think there's some very good imagery in Conjuring 2 that you can take and use as a monster or as set dressing for a dungeon. Crimson Peak. Wow, I like Guillermo. I like the actors in this movie except for Charlie Hunnam. He tried really hard to evoke the gothic horror feel, and he did, because I find gothic horror very boring. You do have a castle. You do have a castle with some interesting magical grounds, the blood red clay coming up from the earth. The kind of act structure of, well, first you're just meeting this noble, and now they've entreated you to come back to their castle, and now weirdness happens. There's some neat set pieces with the various ghosts that you encounter in different parts of the castle, the like clay mining operation. It's all actually, the more I think about it, like a very, very D&D setting, kind of medieval. You learn stuff about the ghosts, you fight them. Okay, even if I don't find the movie very fun, I can't deny that there's some good working pieces there. There's not much of a party going on. I think that it needs work. It's a very good setting. Like, we could talk more about different ones of these. That it's like, oh, I would take the villain from this, and I would take the setting from this. So I would take the setting from Crimson Peak, and maybe the two villains, the brother and sister. But everything else could be done better. And maybe doing it better will be seeing what your players bring to the table when you say, hey, make me, bring me in a Victorian Gothic character and see what kind of fun they have with it. Dark Water is a horror movie that I kind of forgot about. I don't want to say it's a bad movie. I remember being like, that's okay. I don't think there's much there. I think it's a bad game. Dead Silence. Fun fact, Carrionette is a cool little monster if you want a Chucky or a Dead Silence puppet. Carrionette is in Van Richten's Guide, and I think that has a really fun stat block. As far as the movie itself, you're an investigator, you're coming in, there's a few different like dungeon scenarios. There's a mystery to solve. I don't like this movie. Do I think it's a bad movie, bad game? I don't know. There's scary puppets. There's dungeons and stuff. There's something there. Doctor Sleep. Underrated, underwatched movie. I think it has a nice little D&D setup. You have an evil kind of undead, vampire, celestial. What are they? Cult. Demons. There's a lot of different ways to interpret what they are. You're trying to save a kid. I would have one of the party members just like be the kid, and you can have characters that can shine, which is just like you know magic. You can cast spells. Good job. You eventually have to go to a dungeon, and once again, you get to set it up. You get to set up the traps. There's a lot of emphasis here on talking to ghosts, on dealing with your flaws, that I think ties into 5th edition's model of let's use the whole character sheet. Let's use all your skills and exploration and role play together. And you do wind up having some fighting. Danny was that his name? Danny? Whoever Ewan McGregor is is kind of a specialist in ghost and cleansing places. It works as a good background. I think it's a great movie. I don't think it's a bad game. Do I think it needs work, or do I think it's just good? I think it needs work because I love this movie. It has a very interesting plot structure, but that structure would be hard to turn into a fun and interesting D&D game. So I'm gonna put Doctor Sleep at the top of my. It's really good, but it needs work. Don't breathe. I haven't seen this whole movie, but I know the gist of it. I've seen clips. I've been spoiled on it. Very, very similar to A Quiet Place. You have a villain with a gimmick that is not only going to gimp the player characters, but really affect how people roleplay. You can do that in a way that's very fun, but I could see it being more annoying than anything. I mean, it has the same problems and the same strengths as The Quiet Place, so I'm going to put it here with the bonus that, like, Stephen Lang, is that the actor's name? The actor who plays the villain in this, it's bonkers good villain. Donnie Darko. This is your wizard warlock background. Donnie Darko is a really cool movie. Lots of crazy stuff happens, man. It really makes you think, but like not a lot of action beats, story beats really happen where your characters are able to act on stuff. I think it's a cool background. Is it a cool? Yeah, it's a cool background. You could work it as the bunny being your warlock patron, or this is how I became a chronologist wizard. Drag Me to Hell. Fun movie. Weird stuff happening. It would be kind of cool to just start with the point of like, and now you're cursed. All four of you are cursed. As a party, you're going to die in this many days, and what are you going to do? Demons are going to show up and you're going to do stuff, and you can try to avoid it, but eventually you're probably going to die. I think this could be fun to play through. Again, the whole tone of it is great, and I think something that's worth replicating. It does need work. It might just be like there's something there. Yeah. Because on the flip side of that, how cool it is to say, like, okay, you're cursed, you're probably going to die on the end of this, is the fact that, like, oh, you're probably going to die, there's not, like, too much you can do, but let's have fun, let's have a little roller coaster of lots of demons showing up. Elvira, I left this one on here because I think we should all, as DMs, aspire to be Elvira. That is goals, but ultimately no comment about like her different movies and shows themselves. There's not much to say other than Elvira is dope and we should all be her. I'm pretty sure this is Perfect Blue, which is a crazy movie. Definitely watch it. Like, oh man. Very, very horror, very psychological, lots of symbolism going on. Not much of like a D&D, you're not fighting monsters in a dungeon. You're not even so much fighting the illusions as you're fighting your own head. And I don't think it's much of a background. Like, I don't see how you become an adventurer out of this. I think it's just a very, very horrific tale and very well done, but not very usable in a game. Eraserhead, I think I'm going to have to put in the exact same spot. Evil Dead. Oh, I see. I don't know what happened to the alphabetical order of this. Evil Dead, this is the remake of it and the original. I mean, they both kind of have the same structure. The first Evil Dead is a little more fun to watch, while the remake of Evil Dead is maybe a better, like, action story stuff is happening and our players are trying hard to live, even though they're probably all gonna die. It's okay. Because the thing about, like, the first Evil Dead movie, absolute classic of horror cinema, but it's friends go to a woods and weird stuff happens and they have to lock up a demon and, like, oh no, here's another thing that the demon can do. Oh, they know this spell actually too. There's absolutely something there to work with. Then again, the simplest structures can sometimes be the best for running a one-shot and especially for introducing people to it. I'll bop these up to B. The Exorcism of Emily Rose. There's so many exorcism movies, and, like, goodness, I think this is the one where it's all about the law. I wanna get trial scenes right in D&D. I want to get the stat block for a lawyer right in D&D. I think I gotta say it's a bad game, kind of like Dark Water. Like, it's a decent movie. Invasion of the Body Snatchers. We have a Body Snatcher plant in Van Richten's Guide. This is fun. Your characters do here, I think more so than anything else, come off as more just townies than adventurers. And there's only so far you can go with the whole, am I a real person? Is this NPC who is a fake person real, or are they the real NPC that you met 10 minutes ago? Do you know? There's some fun that you can have with, like, passing out cards to your players that essentially say, like, you are now a body taker plant. There's something there, but it would take some work to really get some more meat on the bones here. But it's a good idea. Final Destination. Here again, like, you're cursed. You survive this terrible accident at the start of the one shot, but you find out that you're all going to die anyway because, you could use an inevitable rather than, like, a demon or a devil. Use a lawful, neutral, inevitable. There's not that much you can do about it, though. I feel like I've seen a few Final Destinations, and I'm like, I don't know what happens, because you watch those movies for the crazy weird kills, right? There's something there. I think the setup is cool. As far as saying, yeah, you're all cursed, you're all gonna die, this inevitable is after you, and you're going to get murdered in a terrible, terrible creative way. But yeah, actually getting some fight in there for them will be tricky. I need to start kind of ordering these around. We'll do that. Classic Friday the 13th, we have a haunted environment. We have a party of people going out to get murdered. We're going to give them a little more agency. You get some interplay between, like, the cabin in the lake and the woods. This mysterious entity. I have actually seen Friday the 13th adapted as a D&D. It was a free drop on Roll20 that I snagged, and I like the maps and monsters there a lot for it. Like, it's good. It's nothing crazy. Like, I think there are other, like, slashers that provide a more interesting model. Don't get me wrong, it's a good movie. It's good. It needs work to make it something really special and memorable for your players. Get Out. Holy heck. Crazy good movie. Can we play D&D with it? You are invited to this creepy noble auction place. There's lots of weird NPCs to meet. There's definitely a dungeon. There's definitely, like, a dungeon environment. There's, like, the castle up above and the dungeon down below. There's some easy NPC pulls. Everything going on with kind of the mind magic, the sorts of possession things going on. I think this would be a really good one to go ahead and insert your aboleth, insert your mind flayer into this to make it easy D&D. If we strip down the political commentary of the film, it is a very kind of basic structure of, like, oops, you're in a bad situation and you got to escape and you're a basic townie, but oh look, there's a shovel. I I mean, the flow of the mystery and the way that you find out new information is good. I'm also talking about it too much while realizing that it's not going to be easy. So I think there's something there, but this is going to be at like the top of there's something there. You're just going to have to work at it. Green Inferno. So this would look like, yeah, you have some environmentalists. You have an environmentalist party. There's some druids and rangers and paladins, and they go out and they get captured. And they get tortured and stuff and eaten. And then at the end, I guess they get away through not that much effort. Like, it's... I'm going to say bad movie, bad game. Before I get attacked, because I know there are some big fans of Eli Roth out there, I saw this movie and I was like, this is not for me. There are some crazy images that I would rather not have in my brain, but, if you want just out there gory, raunchy exploitation to be like, whoa, I can't believe somebody put that on the screen. Like, Green Inferno is good for you. It's going to be more exciting than Frozen and ABCs of Death. I just also think there's not much drive there. There's not much mystery. Gremlins. We have a magical critter with magical rules. They start to take over, and our characters. It's been so long since I've seen this movie. If you can tell, I think it's a really good setup, no matter what. And I think especially the interplay between, well, this monster is my friend, but they can still be a monster and kill us, is really, really good. So there's something there. Well, I'll put it up above. Well, Jennifer's Body has a classic D&D cult in it and demons and stuff. Yeah, I'll put it between Jennifer's Body and Signs. There's something there to work with. Okay. I actually don't know which Halloween cover this is. I think it's the one where it came back with Rob Zombie. I don't recognize the cover, so I'm not gonna comment on it. Classic Halloween, though. Again, we have a super simple structure, kind of like Friday the 13th. We are in a town that gives us more exploration, more role playing to deal with. We have the Shade, Mike Myers, who is just kind of a big dude with a dagger, but he's unstoppable. Just it's so hard for me to say like Halloween is basic because it's such a great horror movie. I don't think it's a bad game. You're running away from the scary man. And I'm terribly out of focus. Oh my goodness. Hi, camera. There we go. Sorry. I don't want to say it's bad. It's so stripped down because it's all about the horror of being in your little neighborhood that you thought was safe, but now there is this unstoppable, inhuman thing that is after you, and that feeling is something that we really want to make. But actually making this into a D&D one shot, it's gonna take a lot of work. It's gonna take work. Hellraiser. Oh boy. We have another dimension. We have a magical MacGuffin that can take us there and do magic. Very, very good villain. Is it Frank is the name? The skinless dude. Very, very good movie. Like S-tier horror movie, kind of like Halloween, but can we make a D&D game out of it? I think it's a good setting. Good backstory. I'm putting it at the top of good backstory. Because for this to be where your warlock or your sorcerer like got their powers from, they know about the puzzle box and Pinhead and the Cenobites, like that's so insanely good for your character. The actual stuff that happens in the movie, while very, very good, I am having trouble putting that into a structure where I could put it in front of my players. Hereditary. This might be very similar, actually. A bunch of wild stuff happens. There's a bunch of us trying to figure out what's up with our family. Are we crazy, and did we inherit that? It has a good cult in it. Damn. One of my faves, and I think I'm going to have to drop it in Great Movie, Bad Game. The Hills Have Eyes. Oh, these are both here. To be fair, I'll put the original Hills Have Eyes up in no comment, because I have not seen that one. I have seen the 2000s remake of it, which I think is like good, bloody fun. It's not for everyone. It kind of has what Green Inferno has going for it, except in Green Inferno, your people just kind of get captured, and then that's the rest of the movie. That's the rest of your adventure. It's like, well, you're captured. Can you get out or not? Hills Have Eyes, there's a lot more traveling around. There's a lot more deliberating about who's going to go, what resources do we have, what exactly are the things that we're fighting, are they people? And even the different people, I could see having the like mutants or whatever, have different kind of stat blocks and different things that they do. There are some things that happen in Hills Have Eyes that I would not want to replicate at a D&D table under any circumstances, but is there something there? Absolutely. And in fact, I think just for the exploration aspect and the quest of it, and the fact that you have a ready-made party coming in their RV, their carriage, whatever, I think there's a good setup there, more so than a lot of these. I'll drop it right there between our two big zombie movies. Hostel! I've already said what I said about Eli Roth. This is very much getting captured in a dungeon, though. And you do have to form up a party and make your way out of here and fight. I think there's something there. There's not much magic, so like I would have to put it behind Get Out, where there's some definite like magic elements. Yeah, there's something there that you can work with for sure. It's an easy setup, but that doesn't mean it's bad. Hush. Interesting things going on with kind of Don't Breathe and Quiet Place, where it's like, oh, you can't speak, you can't hear, which are conditions in the D&D game, and I think there can be some play with a one-shot of that and having to say your character has this going on with them, your character has this. It is very much a one-lead show. The villain is just kind of dude with knife. There's something there. And because I can already hear myself and you typing, why did you put Don't Breathe and Quiet Place down here when you put Hush up there? Because I think there's a big difference between you have the ability to speak, and if you do it, you're going to get punished for it, and you can't speak. This is now an interesting hurdle that you must overcome. How will you play your character differently? I think that's the difference, and that's why I'm putting this as higher. Watership Down. I asked Madeline, like, hey, would you like a D&D game with Watership Down? And she was like, huh? So she said, I guess. I mean, like, we have this whole, nobility village set up. We're traveling around. It can be really fun for a one-shot to be like, hey, you're all rabbits. Except now we have a rabbit race. We have Harengon from the Wild Beyond the Witchlight book. So I think this one can work. I would have to really remind myself about the like plot elements and the structure, but I know there's bunny on bunny combat encounters. I can't deny that it would need work, but I think it goes in B tier. I haven't had an A tier or an S tier recently. Let's see if that changes with Insidious. Very good movie. I love this horror movie. Not like on my top 10, but it's consistently like, yeah, Insidious, that's good. Everything's happening to this one little boy. We have multiple entities. We have a separate plane that we go into. We have our group of paranormal investigators mixed with like the mom and dad who are just, regular level 0 commoners trying to do what's good and are thrust into kind of being adventurers. I think you could do the mixed party between like, okay, you're the mom and the dad who are just like level 1 fighter, level 1 ranger, and these are the guys with like cleric and paladin levels. The demon in there is a good villain, and you have all the other little entities, and there's not a lot of fight to it. In fact, there might not be any fighting in Insidious. It's all very like you have to outsmart and outchase the villain, and that can be a very cool setup for a one shot to say like, hey guys, we're not going to have any combat, just so you know. On the other hand, it is mostly like weird stuff happens in the weird house, and then we fix it. There's something there. Just on the aspect of the different entities, the ghosts, the creatures designs, the demon, the dread that this movie forms up for you being a good model, I think this belongs up here, but we'll put it at the back. It Follows, another good modern horror movie. Do I think you can make a game out of it? It's an interesting puzzle, and I like monsters and villains that are a puzzle to try to beat. Because It Follows you can't shoot it in the head. You can, it's going to keep coming for you. And I think that fact of it just keeps coming, and how can you travel? Now, I could already see some ways that a D&D table could really game the system to try to make this as cheesy as possible. But there's something there. You have this revenant, you have this inevitable that's after you. We'll put in something there. This is from the more recent movie of it, not It 2. I don't feel like talking about that one. We have one cosmic entity that can take on a different appearance based on your character's greatest fears and greatest flaws, which I think is a very good introduction to a campaign to say, hey, what are your greatest fears? What are your flaws? What are you most afraid of this thing turning into? So very good villain. As far as the stuff that happens in the movie, it feels like the first 2 hours is just like, whoa, the kids are getting scared. That Pennywise sure is a crazy dude, huh? And then at the end, it's like, oh, okay, let's get together and let's go save the one girl down in the dungeon. It's good. I think you can add a few more interesting encounters and ways to fight back against, incorporate some of the movie 2 moments. That might actually be really cool to have a one shot. That's it. Chapter 1. And then next year for Halloween, you play out It Chapter 2 and make an experience that's better than the second movie. 9, I was really surprised to see this on this list. I guess it does apply as horror. We have a post-apocalyptic landscape, where we are all playing as construct stitch punks. Some of us have levels, some of us are Elijah Wood. There's so much crazy monsters that are made out of... I can already see I'm sure somebody's done this before. I hope somebody's done this. I may go look for a video of this, because I could see the little stitched together pieces just being pieces on your game board, and that being a lot of fun. I think the story setup is good. It's pretty basic, but it gets you right into the action. You meet your team of characters, and you go fight back the evil, and you bring hope to the world. I think this is an S tier. I think it works... No, I'll keep it at the end. I actually want to bring down Evil Dead 2, because the more and more I think about it, the more I like the tone of it, more than I like the actual plot structure. Can I take this and make an encounter of it? Moving on. Mandy. Good little movie, very, very trippy, very different. You got to be in the right mood or the right drugs to watch this one and really enjoy it to its fullest extent. Can you make a D&D adventure out of it? There's a dude with, Nick Cage with a big old battle axe going barbarian on some weirdo devil people in leather armor and bikes and chains and stuff. Oh, man. Obviously you need to flesh out Nick Cage as a party of Nick Cages. Oh my god. Guys, crazy one shot. Tell everybody that they have to bring a different Nick Cage to the table. Have somebody who says not the bees, and have somebody who's from Mandy, and have somebody who's a vampire. Oh man. Yeah, that makes the idea better, but if I'm being fair, that's Nick Cage one shot, not Mandy one shot. There's stuff here, it needs work. Martyrs. Oh god. Good horror movie, messed up horror movie. Not even one to watch with friends, one to watch at home alone in the dark and then take an hour of self-care afterwards to be like, ugh. On that note, like, there's some magic, there's some like cult stuff, there's some illusions and psycho stuff going on. Like, aside from the first part where she's just trying to stop her friend from killing this family because she has no context for what's going on, the latter half of the movie is like, and you've been captured by the cult and you're being tortured. Congratulations, you can't do anything. It's actually a worse problem than what Green Inferno has going on for it, because Green Inferno, you feel like those characters could get out. Martyrs, there's no hope. And as a DM, you want to create the illusion that there's no hope, but you don't want to give the knowledge that, like, no, there is actually no hope. So I think I'm gonna have to say, I almost hesitate to say great movie. I know it's highly regarded by horror communities. I think just for that, I'll put it in this, but I'll say take caution from anyone telling you like, oh man, you got to see monsters, because like, look up some warnings about it, see if you're actually ready for it. Yes, I think it's a good movie. It's interesting. It certainly, you'll lose sleep over it, and if that's your gauge for horror, then that's good. Midsommar. Oh, I'm trying to think of how this would work. Oh my god. I mean, your people are moving to a weird little psycho cult part of town. There's fun little weird, like, there's little pieces of Midsommar that I want to take out and use in adventures. But what I actually want to have my party sit through it, I think it's a bit too mundane. Until you get into the really wacky stuff that you wouldn't want to do at a D&D table. Well, you're paralyzed and in a bear suit, and now you're on fire. What do you want to do about it? You can't roll any saves. I'm gonna have to say great movie, bad game, right next to Hereditary. Damn. Mother. Wow, what a pair to put right next to each other. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the One Shot. We will all be playing biblical allegories, which I have represented for you on these character sheets. This doesn't work. It's all a metaphor. And I'm not sure if it works as a movie. It was the kind of movie where I watched one time and I was like, well, what the hell was all that? I mean, I get it, but I don't. I'm not with it. I'm not gonna say it's a bad movie. I'm not gonna say it's a great movie. It's just it's a bad game. Mother would not work. Cabin Fever. We've got crazy horror comedy vibes, freaky stuff happening. You're fighting a disease more so than you're fighting people. This sounds like it would get into some like PvP, and there are some tables that, especially for a one-shot, are super down for that, and there are some tables that just never want to do that. There's not much of a mystery. It's a really fun, like, funny Halloween movie to watch. I don't know if it would be good to play out. No, bad game. I'll put it at the top of bad game. Because there's some stuff there. It's a fun tone, and other than that, I don't think there's much you can use. Rocky Horror Picture Show. I feel like I'm going to say super fun to watch with your friends. What do you actually do when you play through it? I mean, it's already like a parody of horror, and you could play this out as like a parody of a D&D game. Actually, yeah. I think if you said, okay, you know, I want you to play as Dammit Janet, and you're Rocky, and you're Eddie, you could have fun with this. I'm sure if I went and Googled this, like, there are already people who have made 100 different Rocky Horror Picture Show D&Ds, so there's definitely something there. There's definitely potential. I think it's good. I think it's a good game. I think it's a good game. You could have a lot of fun with this one. Everybody likes Rocky Horror. Sure, why not? Malignant. This one makes me laugh. That's been a lot of them recently, but Malignant makes me laugh for different reasons. Martyrs and Midsummer because I'm like, oh god, that's really creepy, and how would I make that? Malignant because it's a funny movie. I don't know if somebody intended it to be funny, but it's funny. I think it's a bad game. If I said there's something there, what's something there is like one goofy boss fight, but honestly, it's there's not enough there to work with aside from the one villain who has some crazy fighting. Just take the way that the villain in Malignant fights. I'm not going to describe it here for this one in particular. If you haven't seen it, if you can describe that through your play, make that happen for one monster and ignore the rest of this movie. Night of the Living Dead, the classic version of I Am Legend. The characters bunk up in a house and fight back hordes of zombies. It's classic. It works. It's very approachable. I would feel bad not putting it next to I Am Legend, so I'll put it there. Ouija. I can't read this. If it's the poster for the second movie that I watched, and I was like, oh, this was actually good compared to like how not great the Ouija board movie is. There's not much there. In Van Richten's guide, they give you the Ouija board at the back of the book to play around with, and I was like, ooh, okay. I know some of my friends would definitely be like, get that away from me. Bad game. Young Frankenstein. This is like your horror D&D game is like Dracula is the expectation, Young Frankenstein is the reality. Do I actually think it's S tier? Maybe not, but I think just approaching this with like, hey guys, I'm not going to try to scare you at all. We're just going to have a good time, and it's probably just going to be hilarious. Like, there's something to say out of that. Yeah, I think setting up your game as just a comedy has a lot of potential. Gosh, this is getting to be a lot to scroll through. Pan's Labyrinth, amazing monsters, amazing world building, amazing dungeon. Go do it. I don't have much to say about this one. It's an S tier. Put it behind 9 because you have to figure out how to do the party rather than just one little girl. But there's so much amazing stuff there to take as inspiration as a DM. Paranormal Activity. There's not much that happens. You're not really fighting back against it. I like Paranormal Activity. Not enough to say it's a great movie. Not enough to say it's a bad movie. We're going to say bad game. Poltergeist. I don't have enough of opinion about this one. It's weird stuff happening in a house. Rosemary's Baby. I would really have to think about that one. I don't think it works as a game. Actually, yeah, great movie, bad game. Great movie, bad game for Rosemary's Baby. I have a couple of Saws here. And I want to differentiate like Saw 1 and Saw 2. Saw 1 is all about like, you're trapped in a dungeon and you gotta cut your foot off. That's hard to do when you're a person. It's easy to do when you're a D&D character because you go, oh, okay. Yeah, I'll make an attack roll against my own foot. Did I hit my own foot? Yeah, you hit your own foot. Oh, okay, I cut it off. There are some other fun traps and things that you can take, but Saw 1 is all about like you're stuck on your own. When we start getting into the sequels, that's when you have groups of people stuck in dungeons, and that's where you really have something that you can work with. You would have to pull that together into a plot, and probably have a satisfying way to like meet your villain. So I'm going to put it in B tier. It's probably mid B tier if I'm being honest. And I think there's another one down here. Yeah, Cube, basically the same thing, right? So I'm going to put those two right next to each other. Saw 1, though, you're kind of like the movie is more observing people having bad stuff happen to them, and there's one solution to get out, and they do the thing, and it hurts them a lot, and it's gory, but not a great game, bad game. I already talked about Scream, so I'm sorry I missed that in the initial purge. We're putting it up there. Sinister. So everybody knows that the best parts of Sinister is when you're going back and you're looking at the videos, right? I think you could replicate that effect through like a bard's tales or some scrolls that are littered around this old house. Excuse me. 2 of them. Goodness. Dust in my wig. And then actually have a way to fight back against Bagul. That doesn't necessarily happen in the actual film. I do like Sinister a lot. Even more than just the little videos that you see. I think the acting is good. I think the story is good. I think the suspense is good. But if I'm being honest, I think that it's a something there. I'm going to put it towards the top of something there because I think that what is there as far as using these little vignettes of a scary story to tell your players, to give them hints about what this monster can do. I think that's so good on its own that really shines out as something high. Silence of the Lambs, kind of barely a horror movie. You're investigators, you're tracking down a serial killer, you have to talk to another serial killer. There's a lot of traveling around and a lot of meandering, and the ultimate showdown just comes down to like, oh, yep, you made one good dodge and one good attack roll. Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. Great game. Or great movie, bad game. Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We have a ragtag party that goes wandering through parts unknown, and they wind up at a spot where they're getting murdered, but they can run away and stuff. There's a fun little cast of villains when they're, all sitting around the table and you're meeting the messed up family. I think there's something there. It's a little basic. You can work with it. I'll put that up here with like Halloween. Maybe behind Sinister. Blair Witch Project. Oh no, lots of little things happen. Yeah, try telling your players like, you wake up and there's a stick man. I want to roll investigate on the stick man. It's a man made of sticks. What are you going to do about that? I don't know. I don't think there's anything I can do about that. There's nothing you can do about that. Better move on with your adventure day. Okay. Can I read the map? No, you're lost. I'm lost? Yep, magically. Your ranger doesn't work. Like, point I'm getting at is there's not... good movie. Really good movie. There's not a lot of agency for your characters. It's just kind of like, whoa, creepy stuff in the woods. Are you losing your mind yet? If I was in the woods, yes, I would be. If I'm sitting here at a table with you, not so much. Great movie, bad game. Oh, it didn't actually drop. There we go. The first Conjuring, whereas the second Conjuring has some really crazy, like, multiple entities and cool stuff going on. The first Conjuring is just about establishing, like, here's a really down-to-earth haunted house movie, and here's our paranormal investigators who are going to stop it. And for that reason, The Conjuring is probably a better movie than The Conjuring 2, but, like, not as good as a game. Where did I even put Conjuring 2? I put that in good game. I don't know. It's good, but it needs work because it's just kind of a haunted house. Oh, this is The Descent, S tier. S tier. I'll put it above The Mist and Dracula because it's such a simple setup. There's not a lot of like role play. There's a ton of exploration elements in this horrific mega dungeon that you're in with these monsters. Really good movie, really good D&D game. The Exorcist. Crazy stuff happens and your priests go in and they keep making rolls and casting spells until it works. Insanely good, classic horror movie. Not gonna deny that. Do I think there's something there, or do I want to put it in great movie, bad game? No. Your character's just standing in a room and constantly making checks for... I'm gonna roll Intimidate. The power of Christ compels you. Can I put a command on that? Yeah, how many spell slots? I've cast command 4 times in the last 10 minutes. Okay, then you're out. Yeah, I'm sorry. Maybe a good background. Well, Let's see. The Fly. There's something cool here. I'm not entirely sure where your party would be, if they would be Jeff Goldblum or if they would be everyone around Jeff Goldblum. Cool villain transformation, cool tech, cool magic, cool, like, that kind of scariness, like, we can do it, but should we do it kind of thing. There's something to play around with there. Good backstory. Either, hey, I turned myself into a crazy fly monster and that's why I'm a dragonborn, or like hey, I knew a guy who did this thing and now I want to make sure other people don't do that with that same tech. We'll go with The Fly as a good background. The Grudge. Cool haunted house, multiple entities with very, very iconic things that are happening to them. That's the kind of thing when we get to, something like Jason Voorhees. He's kind of a dude with a knife, or machete, whatever. But The Grudge, the way that the mom ghost works, the way that the kid with his creepy little meow. There's some stuff there. The mystery's there. It's a little basic. It should go above The Conjuring, so I'm going to put it in B. Finally, we have, let's see, The Ring. Very similar. I like the travel element going on in this. I like the fact that you are cursed, but unlike Drag Me to Hell, like, there is a way that you can stop this. There's not a lot of encountering the ghost. Like, basically, once the ghost is actually there, like, you are dead. But again, like I've said before, it can be cool to say this is a no combat one shot, you guys. So I think The Ring is cool. I think I'm gonna put it up here, kind of with like Halloween and Sinister, as far as there's such a good setup there that I think you can put more flesh on the bones and you can make an adventure out of it. Bonus points if you make everyone watch the video at the start of the session. The Ritual. This actually has a super D&D setup that makes me want to put it up towards A. You're a bunch of guys going out in the woods. Some weird stuff is going to happen. Somebody's going to get hurt, and that's going to be something you deal with. You start coming across this weird culty people in the woods. Gosh, there's a lot of cults in D&D and a lot of cults in horror movies. I wonder if people have ever been afraid of religion or afraid of the other. Anyway, The Ritual, yeah, it's a good game. I think it actually works a little bit better on its own, and you have to do a little less work than a lot of these, like Mama. You're out in the woods. I still think that the idea of the Purge and handing the players their own dungeon is good, so I'm going to keep the Purge pretty high on the A list. The Shining. Crazy good movie. Not a lot of ways to fight against it. I think Dr. Sleep kind of like fixes that. I mean, you're running from Jack Nicholson with an axe. Jack Nicholson with an axe. Extremely good DM inspiration for your next villain. Would I make a whole story, a whole one-shot out of The Shining? I don't think I would. I'm going to put it right here next to the other Stanley Kubrick. The Thing. This is S tier. I'm going to put this above Alien because there's more going on at any point. It becomes an easy formula for, turning the party against each other. The thing that I mentioned about the body snatchers is even more of a degree here. And I think the nice thing about The Thing is you get the sense that these are all competent individuals. Not quite something like The Predator, which is not on this list, but for the record, I would also put an S tier. They're not hardened level 10 soldiers, but they're all some kind of experts in the field. They all have different skill proficiencies. They're all good. They all should be able to figure out where the thing is at any point, but they can't. You have a horrifying environment with the extreme cold. You have lots of stuff where they rely on their tech. You can rely on magic items. There's so much going on here with The Thing. I think actually more going on than Alien, and I think this is S tier. The Wailing, I gotta admit, I saw The Wailing because it was like the thing that everybody in horror like message boards were saying like, oh, you gotta see the wailing, you gotta see the wailing, and I saw the wailing, and I don't know if it was a case of it getting overhyped for me, but I did not think very much of it. You have a disease going throughout the town. You have the weird guy living up in the mountains. There's some possible like devil, demon, outsider stuff going on. Like there's something. There's something. I don't want to call it a bad game. It has a very good like investigating the mystery, investigating the lore structure. There's some magic there. In fact, if I'm being honest, I would put it above Follows, Hush, Hostel, Body Snatchers. I'll put it right there and see. Train to Busan, probably the best zombie movie. I would hope it's the end of the zombie movie era. I also think it's a very good D&D setup. Using a train car or train cars as a dungeon is not an original concept. I know it happens in Eberron for sure. It happens in one of the adventures in Van Richten's Guide. It's a very good setup. It gets you into the claustrophobia. It's nice for DMs because it says here's where you are. If your players accuse you of being railroaded, you say yes, it's on a railroad. What do you want from me? At least you get to pick which car you go through. Yeah, I think there's lots of... You do have to work on this one. This is not going to be an S tier because you have to work on this one to not just make it, and there's some zombies at the door again, and there's an NPC that wants to betray everyone again. What are you going to do? You do have to work with this one a little bit. Anything with zombies can get old. The movie does a really good job of continuing to amp up the stakes, but it does have that kind of Act 1, like, hey, y'all have never seen a zombie movie before, right? Which I might skip if I was playing with D&D players that had seen any horror movie or an episode of The Walking Dead. So I think this is A. I think this is extremely high A tier because it's a very good example of action and putting your characters in a set piece and letting that set piece work for you. Trick or Treat, another fave, another classic. It's difficult because it's an anthology. And as a one-shot, you're already condensed by time. And making that condensed story kind of like writing a 5-page paper versus a 10-page paper, like that is harder for most people, I'll say. So trying to do maybe like 3 stories would be very hard. There are some individual stories in there, though, especially the one with the little kids in the bus. Holy heck, that would make a phenomenal little one-shot. So I don't think it's S tier because you do have to work on it. But I would still put this in very high A. And especially just for setting a tone of Halloween and creepiness and death, but in a way that's like, approachable. That's what we want for D&D, right? Underworld, I think is a bad movie, straight up. I don't even think it's that fun of a movie. But it is very D&D friendly. Hey, we're gonna go kill vampires, and they have their whole like noble structure that we gotta upend, and my boyfriend is a werewolf, and he's joining my party now, Dad. Like, yeah. I think it might work better as a D&D, kind of like Van Helsing, actually, in a lot of ways. But whereas Van Helsing, like, they go around and they use really nice set pieces and really good fights with the monsters, I think Underworld doesn't give us as much to work with as far as a model of it. Cool outfits from the era of every action movie should be The Matrix only translates so far in your character's description. I will put this very high. I will actually put this... I'll put it right behind Silent Hill, because while the world and the monsters aren't as cool, I think the fact that your party would be, monster hunters that are very proficient with their repeating hand crossbows is very nice. 7. Wow. Oh, that would be messed up to do at a D&D table. I've said investigating a mystery a lot. That comes up. Once you actually get towards the end, though, the villain is not one that you can fight or even really outsmart. it kind of comes down to one decision, and for these characters in Seven, the horror and the tragedy of that movie is that they make the wrong choice. They can't stop the inevitable from happening. It's a very good theme to work with, although I honestly think that like the Seven Deadly Sins is kind of played out. Actually, for that reason, well, I mean, I have a lot of stuff high up for being in a haunted house, and that's not played out. So let me take that back. There's something there. You can have different murders being done by one humanoid or by like 7 different devils. Yeah, I don't want to say that one is a bad game, because I think there is something you can work with, but you got to work hard for it. Bram Stoker's Dracula. So I guess I have like 3 Draculas on here, because we got the classic Dracula, Van Helsing, and Bram Stoker's. It's funny to have these on here 3 times, but like, well, let me put The Mist ahead of them, because that has more going on. I'm gonna put Bram Stoker's Dracula, the bonkers 90s version with Keanu Reeves and Gary Oldman as Dracula. Gary Oldman as Dracula is a really nice, I think, a really nice D&D villain model for you as a DM, because it's so campy, it's so out there, but it's so memorable. And Bram Stoker's Dracula gets into more of the like we are a monster hunting party following old man Van Helsing. Yeah, very cool, very classic, lots going on. Lake Mungo. I don't have to think about this one very much, because it is a wonderful, wonderful horror movie that you should check out if you've never heard of it, but it's not a game. It's an experience. It's shot in kind of a documentary style, not a found footage style, but a documentary style. The story unfolds as it's a good movie. Not a lot of people have seen it. It's really good. Don't expect jump scares. Don't expect it to be the scariest thing you've ever seen, but it is a good horror movie and not a good D&D game. Record. Quarantine was based on this movie. If anybody wants to substitute in Quarantine, I think it's a good setup. Again, you hop into a dungeon. You are in a claustrophobic space. This one has multiple levels, kind of like our train, and Busan has multiple train cars. We are fighting zombies, which can get old. Where did I put Busan? Because it's basically like Busan, except I think Busan provides some very good examples for like, here's some conflicts that you can have with your NPCs, friendly and unfriendly, on the train. Here's ways that the party can expand and decrease. Whereas Record, you're kind of following around this one film crew. I do like the setup of like, hey, you're a film crew, get in there and tell the story of what's going on. Oh, oops, you're stuck there now. So I think it's a good game. Where did I put Busan? Oh, it's up here. So we have a zombie trio here. I think Busan provides the best opportunities. I think 28 Days Later has some really good exploration and being out in the world and exploring. I also think the fast zombies in 28 Days Later are, well, they're actually present in Record and Train to Busan, aren't they? Yeah, I think Record belongs up there, but it's probably the weakest setup of those 3. The Village. Poor M. Night. I mean, this is a shoe-in for bad game, bad movie. Or bad movie, bad game, right? Like, yeah. Nosferatu. Didn't I have Nosferatu? I could have sworn. No, yeah, okay, we have multiple Nosferatus. I'm sorry I missed that. No comment. Good, he's a monster. He's in the Van Richten's book. That's good, but other than that, it's Dracula, right? Says the guy who put Dracula on here 3 times. Whatever. The Strangers, it's classic home invasion, but it doesn't have as much going on with it as something like The Purge does. The Purge has those extra layers of, we have the security, we have the... I hesitate to say put a lot of political elements in your D&D game, but like there's D&D politics of like who's the noble, who's the guild that's benefiting from all these security measures, and The Strangers doesn't have that. It's neat little home invasion that you can overcome, but it's boring, and I think the divide between the idea of the Purge and the idea of the Strangers is so stark that I'll put this in. There's something there. We're on the last row. If you've been watching for 2 hours, good on you. I should have encouraged you to put this at like 1.5 speed. I would not be offended. Comment if you're offended by me mentioning that now because you were watching at real speed. Let's see. The Babadook. Oh, insanely good movie. Very good modern horror movie. Creepy boy. Creepy monster thing that we fight by kind of yelling at it with our feelings, which plays out very, very good in the movie. Again, you have to put yourself in the position of if I'm the player or if they're the player and I'm the DM, what does this exchange actually look like? There's not really casting spells. It's just kind of rolling persuasion to save my son. And I don't think that works. I think it can be a good backstory. Well, it doesn't have as much going on for your backstory as the likes of these other ones down here. Yeah, I'm going to leave that in great movie, bad game. I goofed. The Invisible Man, I haven't seen. Jaws. We have a team of experts going out into a hostile environment to try to track down one undefeatable big damn monster, and this is S tier. It's easy, S tier. It's simple, but if your party has never played, on a boat before, what a good introduction. And then you can say, guys, did you like our Jaws one-shot? Well, maybe we want to do that nautical campaign so that we can play One Piece D&D. Yeah, start with Jaws. It's really good. I'm going to call that an S-tier horror D&D game. Carrie, well, yeah, that's a good backstory, not much else. I thought I would have something good to say about The Omen. I don't think I do. It's not even that great of a movie. Bad game. House of 1,000 Corpses. We have a crazy dungeon that you're trapped in with lots of wacky characters. Can you escape? Ooh. I make fun, but I feel like that's how Rob Zombie would describe his own movies. It's not bad. There's a bunch of creepy stuff that happens in a dungeon. Sure, why not? Bottom of A tier. Misery. Here again, the problem with Green Inferno, you get captured and you're there, and can you escape? I don't know. I broke your legs, so good luck with that. Bad game. Tusk. I don't think Tusk is that bad a movie. It's a bad movie that I enjoy, so I guess if I'm being honest, we know where this is going to go. Bad game, bad movie. The only thing I could take from here, other than the body horror of I true polymorphed you into a walrus. I true polymorphed myself into a walrus. Now we must walrus fight. It's that's not enough to build a one-shot off of. But it's enough to take a weird little snippet from. But I also don't feel like saying there's something there, because that one little joke of a snippet is not worth trying to make a Tusk game happen. So, bad game, and if I'm being honest, even though I kind of enjoyed how wacky it is, bad movie. The Sixth Sense. Great movie, we know that, right? We have a paranormal, it's been a while for this one. I think he starts out as a child therapist, Bruce Willis is. And he's trying to work with this kid to figure out his weird, wacky visions, his latent magical powers. And you're all dead. It would be really... You would have to keep this one on wraps. You couldn't say, hey guys, welcome to my Sixth Sense one-shot. You would have to say, hey, you're all playing... paranormal investigators and therapists and teachers who are trying to help this kid who has some weird magical powers. Can you figure out what's going on with him before the end? And then at the end, everyone figures out on their own that they're dead. At which point, they would either go, whoa, I was dead the whole time, or they'll go, did you just Sixth Sense us? And you go, I just Sixth Sense you. And it's a fun time. most of what happens in this movie, though, is the little kid just kind of seeing ghosts and being like, oh no, the dead people are dead people. So you gotta figure it out. Do I think it's a bad game? Do I think it's a great movie bad game? No, I think there's something there. And I think there's something there. I'll put it behind 7 and ahead of The Strangers. I don't really care about enough of these to like go in and start to rearrange them. All right, Audition. ha 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 ha. Audition is a good horror movie. If nothing else, then the whole time you're sitting there like, where's the horror movie? I guess this is kind of creepy. I guess that girl's a little off. And then the last like 15, 20 minutes happens. You're just which I don't know if there's a way to replicate that tone of like build up, build up, build up. We're rolling regular rolls in our tavern. You're in a regular dungeon where nothing's happening. How weird. There's just this NPC with you that's very, very helpful, very keen to help you, very keen to stay close and help you. And then at the end, whoa, something weird happens. She casts sleep on you, and now this is happening. But like, do you escape from that? Do you? I don't know. It's almost like she's a good villain to put into your campaign. But I don't think there's enough going on in Audition to build a story out of. So do I think there's something there? Do I think it's a... there is something there, but not to make a one-shot out of. There's something to take apart and be like, I want this. So I'm going to say great movie, bad game. And, wow... almost 2 hours, and that is the end of my tier list. I want to kind of review and see, is there anything I would change? Hellraiser, it feels bad being down there as good background because I think that you can use the puzzle box and you can go into the different plane with the Cenobites, but then they just kind of talk to you and you say, yes, I will take the deal, or no, I won't take this deal. I'm actually super not into this. Or you say, yeah, I'm into this. Let me be a warlock. It's... no, okay, it works too good as a warlock backstory to do anything else with. Great movies, bad games. Could any of these be good games? I keep fluctuating on Quiet Spot, but I really think that if somebody has a great way to like do that gimmick and not be a jerk about it as a player or as a DM, I would love to hear it. But I think doing The Quiet Place would take a lot of trust and a lot of ground rules. Bad game, bad movie. Nothing needs to move here. Bad game, Cabin Fever, Dark... yeah, there's something there. Get Out, Halloween, Ring, Sinister, Chainsaw Massacre, Scream, Collective, Frankenstein, Jennifer's Body. Really weird to have Frankenstein's and Jennifer's Body right next to each other. Gremlin, Signs... I want to bump up Autopsy of Jane Doe, but the reality is that, like, for as good as the setting and everything is, the villain, as it would be, the entities, like, you gotta have something for your characters to do, and you gotta have a feeling like they can actually get out of it, more than just like, and now I'm describing creepy things happening. Let's see. Good, Needs Work, Dr. Sleep, Evil Deads, Candyman, Akira, 10 Cloverfield, Legend, Cube, Saw sequels, Crimson. Yeah, this is good. A's are all looking good. So, how many did I wind up with? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Alright, so The Thing, Alien, The Descent, Mist, Dracula, both together. I'll be fair, let me put Bram Stoker's there and get rid of that Dracula. Dracula as a like kind of campy but classical reading, you know, a la Curse of Strahd works as S tier, but also just going balls to the wall with the bizarre monster slaying is also good in S tier. Cabin in the Woods, just, you know, embrace the fact that your players have seen horror movies before and let them play through it and be meta about it will be super fun. Resident Evil is a nice dungeon, nice weapons, nice monsters. It works. Sleepy Hollow, we have a good mystery, we have a great monster, we have witches and magic and funny little townspeople and douchebag jocks pretending to be monsters that can get owned. 9 Stitch Punks, possibly with the addition of making your own little, well, that'd be a lot of work, but just get some like little burlap squares and have your party draw faces on them. That'll be cute. Come on. Pan's Labyrinth, just a ton of inspiration there. Jaws, probably the most simple thing up here, but it's simple and it works. And finally, Evil Dead 2 for fun monsters, fun, easy environment, and boy, is the tone just perfect for D&D. So, those are my tops in the S tier list. I hope this was fun for you. Please tell me in the comments below if you have certain movies that maybe I missed and you want my opinion of, because this was not an exhaustive horror movie tier list. Movies that are up here in the no comment that you would like to put somewhere, or any of my movies that I put down here where it's like, actually, Jackson, I have a great idea for how this would work and I want to bump it up, or Jackson, I think you're giving Van Helsing too much credit and you need to take it down from S tier. Let me know, guys. Please have a spooky Halloween and also have a Nat 20 day. Bye-bye.